I would like to, read a response which we have received from the Chief Information Officer, Commissioner of Manipur Government, Oinam Sunil, and he has said that, there have been 6,000 FIRs which have been registered since May 3 in different police station. He says it is impossible to give attention to a particular single case considering the size or small size of Manipur police. And he said maybe delay investigating the two cases, case of two women nude parading is because of the large number of FIR. If the video was received around May 4, by now the government would have arrested all accused. The FIR didn't mention about the video. Now, this is the response which has come from Oinam Sunil, who is the Chief Information Commissioner of Manipur Government. And he says that the FIR didn't mention video. It will be too harsh to blame the government for the delay because all police force were used in firefighting. Government arrested 4 persons within 48 hours of video clip surfacing. Now, this is the response which has come from the Chief Chief Information Commissioner of the Manipur government. I will go. It's a fair point, and as a fair news channel, it's our duty to put forth all the versions of all the sides to our viewers. Professor Prasenjit, do you think what is happening in the state of Manipur is a blow to the BJP's Act East policy? Where we have seen how Prime Minister, ever since he has assumed power in May 2014, the key focus area, Professor, has been to make sure that, one minister visits the northeastern states once in 15 days, and a massive push has been given. Do you think what is happening in Manipur undoes all that thing, or is it too early for me to reach at this juncture?
Undoing probably would be too much to say, but certainly it has impacted in a very negative and deleterious way, especially India's image among the international community is certainly dented by all these unfortunate events, which is like a genocide that is happening in Manipur. Especially this parading naked, and the discussion that is following from.
Okay, I think there is some technical issue with Professor Prasenjit Biswas. Dada, if I may come to you, do you think that this will impact the Prime Minister's Act East policy of what is happening in the state of Manipur?
This will impact India's Act East policy. I hate when you say Prime Minister's Act East policy. Because this Act East, he is given the name Act East, but this Look East has originated in the 1990s, started off with Narasimha Rao's government and has slowly developed. The point here is, there are two aspects of Act East. One is maritime. You connect to Southeast Asia through the maritime route. You have a long coastline and which focuses on the east of Asia, so you do that. What the other is, and which we are talking about now, is connecting to the tiger economies of Southeast Asia through the land route and situating a backward, underdeveloped region like Northeast at the heart of India's engagement with Southeast Asia, which will have automatic spillover effects in terms of growth and development and infrastructure building in the Northeast. So that was the whole idea. Now Modi ji came and he wanted to give it a push. There are two factors here, and I'm very happy that General Sivaj brought out the Myanmar angle. When you connect to Southeast Asia through land, you have to go through Myanmar. You can't change geography, sir. So, and you have to go through the Northeast. Now, if in the Northeast, and especially Manipur, whose eastern gates have to open to connect to the Southeast Asia, if Manipur is disturbed the way it is now, how do you run a regional connectivity project through a state which is so horribly disturbed and disrupted, where roads will be blocked, for hours and days and weeks together? Also, if you have a neighbor like Myanmar, which is so horribly disturbed now, it is degenerating into civil war, and General Sivaj is absolutely right that in the Sagaing region particularly, you have daily fighting between the PDF forces, lower down with the Chin insurgents, further lower down the Arakan army, with the Tamada or the Burmese military. And which is why the Burmese drug lords have turned to Manipur. Earlier, they turned to Manipur to transport their drugs through Manipur into the Indian market. Now they're turning to Manipur, Loshedian, Jangi Min, and Wei brothers. These three cartels, they are turning to Manipur, they're turning to Ibocha cartel, not just to transport their processed drugs, but because they can't access their own poppy fields due to the fighting in Myanmar, they are trying to encourage farmers in Manipur to grow poppy so that they can move their processing factories here in Manipur. Very dangerous future prospect. So, if you keep all this in mind, you will see that unless you resolve the internal problems, you solve the problem with the Nagas. 25 years you are negotiating with them and still no act. Almost 8 years that you signed a framework agreement and no progress. You have to settle this whole thing with the Nagas. They're the mother of insurgency in Northeast. You have to sort out this Meitei Kuki and Meitei Aga and all these other problems. If you have to operationalize the act is through land, you can't just bring something from Bombay and transport it through, treat Northeast as a transport corridor. You have to create a manufacturing base here, like the Chinese have done in Yunnan. Huge manufacturing base and then sending those stuff out into other parts of Southeast Asia and also South Asia, as and when possible. You have to create a manufacturing base in the Northeast and not just treat it as a transport corridor, because then it will have no spillover benefits to the local economy. Only our Northeastern brothers will see trucks passing by, big container trucks. So that's not the idea. The idea is if you have to turn Northeast into a developed zone and you have to use your foreign policy outreach, neighborhood outreach for that purpose, the first thing you need is internal stability. And the Indian Army is a fantastic organization, but it's not their job to bring internal stability. They can handle law and order in aid to civil authorities up to a point of time. This is a political problem, has to be solved politically. Where is the political dialogue?
Okay.
गश्त लगाने से एरिया डोमिनेशन से
True.
लॉ एंड ऑर्डर आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं, पर जब तक ये पॉलिटिकल प्रॉब्लम कंट्रोल नहीं होता है, to turn this area into the spearhead or the jumping board of your lookist policy or actist policy is a far-fetched idea. Cliche is very good. There are some people terrific with sloganeering, coming up with very catchy phrases, including some of our great leaders. उससे काम नहीं होता है.
True, true.
You have to look at the situation, and I am suggesting an M2M kind of a problem. You have to tackle the problem in Manipur through internal dialogue and everything else that I've said. You have to also take a serious role, play a serious role in peacemaking in Myanmar. Why can't you send a Myanmar peace mission? Oh, we are supporting the ASEAN, 5-point consensus. What do you mean by supporting the ASEAN? You think you're a regional power and you become a regional power by propagating wait and watch? You have to play a role. You are the land of Gandhi. Send a Gandhi peace mission. Put somebody from Manipur like R.K. Ranjan Singh. Put Zoral Thanga. Put one of our retired generals who know the area very well. Send one or two other Buddhist monks. Chalinda Bhante, who is very popular in Myanmar and rest of Southeast Asia Buddhist areas because he's the head of the Mahabodhi temple and he hails from Assam. And one or two other monks, Burmese, Vietnamese monk, like Dr. Lam. Creative thinking नहीं है साहब. वो पर्ची लिखते हैं यहाँ वहां से मार के. हमारा पॉलिसी पेपर भी हम देखते हैं ना, ये यहाँ वहां से मार के फलाना सेट. What have you said? Huh?
God, I agree with you, Dada. There is a lack of
intelligence is also वो cut and paste वाला intelligence.
Okay.
Sally Harrison said, Falana said, what have you said?
Okay. Professor Prasenjit, I'm glad you're back with us. There was some issue with the internet. You just heard Subir Dada, he's saying that there's a lack of creative thinking. What kind of creative thinking, if I may ask you, sir, would you deploy to diffuse the situation here in the state of Manipur?
Actually, for Manipur, what is needed is a broad-based dialogue. Dr. Robert has also said, Shubidha has also said that it's a question of managing this internal conflict. So, the first step is to bring the conflicting sides together, face to face. We are not able to do that. Even track two is not possible. There are two parts of the conflict, a part which is actually conflagrating the conflict, and the other part which is largely civil society, people who think, people who deliberate, and they also build up an opinion within their own society. At least one part of this and one part from the other side can be brought together in order to develop a kind of an opinionated idea that this conflict is not leading us anywhere. That kind of a first step of opinion building has to be begun with. That is the job of the government of India, which they haven't started. At the next level, there must be intense surveillance, intense understanding of the conflict zones. Why repeatedly certain types of violences are repeating in the night, in the daytime, in the afternoon, and which kind of people are getting involved in it. There is no sensitive understanding of the sensitive zones. Rather, it's a very bird's eye kind of a view that police and paramilitary forces are right now taking, primarily because they don't know the terrain. As Subidha very categorically pointed out, the terrain itself is a big problem for the security forces. They may see certain hamlets, they may see certain habitats, but the chemistry through which the entire thing builds up, the building up of a machinery that gets into the conflict, that is not understood and analyzed by our internal security organizations or by any other who come there to comment and understand the situation. So therefore, the creative engagement would mean starting a process of dialogue by bringing relevant people into focus, and also by bringing certain other kinds of experts who can mediate this dialogue, who can mediate the angularities. The angularities are getting sharpened. The polarities are developing continually, as if it is a multiple kind of polarity through which this conflict is now moving into an undefined zone. And this is precisely a premonition of a kind of a low-level civil war, which is
Okay.
something that is totally undesirable in a democracy. And you never know how it spills onto other places. Then if you
Absolutely.
look at the fragile connection that Manipur and other parts of Northeast has, as General pointed out, as Subidha pointed out, that these connections that you have, which is transcontinental connections, in which Northeast is located. Now, these transcontinental connections have to be managed in a manner that it doesn't work against us. Now, how do you really evolve such a framework? Your own framework of activist policy is not good enough because it is not sufficiently nuanced. Subidha talked about maritime possibility, managing the coastline. So far, we haven't looked at the coastline. Our Situate port is not also ready. We do not have a kind of a deep water port at all in the entire Bay of Bengal. But look at China, how they have created a kind of an enclosure in Bay of Bengal in a very sensitive area through which our goods and services are passing, and goods and services of other countries too are passing. So we are not able to even do area domination in terms of our positioning in the Bay of Bengal. We are not able to monitor properly this transcontinental flow of resources, people, of drugs, of arms, and that is happening as a kind of a long time uncontrolled disorder which is happening across the border in the case of northeastern India. So therefore, one has to be meticulous. We are not able to develop products and give it a GI tag. We are not able to transport it across the border. And Sagaing province and Myanmar army rule is the biggest obstacle. And there is no diplomatic solution to it as long as China is backing Myanmar's army for its own economic and other narrow interests. So a dialogue with China is also absolutely necessary. And that dialogue is progressing nowhere at this point of time. So you combine all these factors and think holistically, which is missing at this point of time. This needs to be regenerated, recreated, rescripted. Mere lookist policy or actist policy have never been good enough to understand these complexities that are arising on the ground.